All right, we're going to do a quick video about week two. I don't have tons of time, so this should be another short-ish video. Want to go over VTL numbers mostly. The standings are sort of part of the commissioner's report. You can look, see your own standings, but VTL, that's what you all come to see. So I'm going to go over some numbers VTL wise, and that'll probably be about it. Try to explain power rankings because this was a tough week to do power rankings. Didn't love it. Didn't like the way it ended, honestly. Don't like putting myself at two even. I don't feel like there's a strong case for really anyone but Nate to be a contender at present because we've almost all had at least one bad week, if not a terrible week. So a lot of people that look shaky to me, and then there's Nate. I guess we can start at the top. Nate's had a great 2 weeks at 66% total VTL. That is a number that is higher than any team can hope to maintain for a long haul. Some of our super teams have seen like 60-ish percent performances like on a routine basis. But considering we've made no transactions yet, essentially, um, that's astounding. 2 weeks, short sample size. Certainly, this isn't likely to stay. I don't think Nate is just a natural super team, but it's been a really good start. 72% batting VTL is the second best in the league, just behind Jeremiah, and 59% pitching VTL, third in the league. Excuse me, fourth in the league. But when you put the two together, you get over 10% above second place in terms of total VTL. That's a crazy gap. Um, let's just say Nate is number one and he's the early favorite. And it's too early to say things like this, but Nate appears to be on track for a bye. We'll see. That certainly could change in a hurry, like things did for me. I left myself number two, despite being 10th in batting now when you consider both weeks. I think when you look at week one, I was 65% batting. Week two, I was a little bit worse. I think I was 15% or something like that when you want to look at the all-time significance of my VTL this week. I was in the bottom 2.45% of all performances of all time. And if you look over here, home runs, RBIs, average, and slugging, all bottom 5% all-time marks. So yeah, you could certainly say, Justin, what the hell, you don't deserve to be number two. I still have the second highest VTL by 2% or by 1.5%. My pitching is the best in the league by a lot so far. So it still feels like I have as good a claim to it as anybody else. I've only had really one side of the ball that was bad one time. The other three have been above 65%. Let's just call it an aberration for week two batting and hope I get back on track. Frank is sort of with me there in the second tier. These tier names were not exactly emphatic this week. I have leader of the pack with Nate. Tier B is someone has to be in tier B. I have myself and Frank. Tier C, which week was real? Because JW, Bo, Casey, and Matthew have all had one pretty good week, or a good week, great week even, or one week that sucked. And it's a stark contrast for three of the four of them. Casey's been right around the middle both weeks, and so he's not quite the same, but felt deserving of tier C. Tier D, at least you're good on one side of the ball. We'll get into their details in a second. But this is three teams that are good on one half and bad on the other, verging on very good and very bad even, like for Jeremiah, for example. And then tier E, tough starts, but there are 19 more weeks. Don't know what else to say other than this has been ugly to start, but it's just 2 weeks. We can't make that much of a small sample size, like 2 weeks. So we probably shouldn't be panicking yet. That said, those numbers for Alex and French have been pretty disappointing, to say the least. So anyway, there's the total order. Maybe I should have done that first. Let's go back to Frank. So Frank, 61% pitching VTL, second best. And I'm surprised because I don't really think the staff looks great on paper, but they've performed. And so here he is, number three overall, 54% VTL. Um, The offense has left a little bit to be desired, despite having some big studs. There's also been a couple guys that really haven't shown up. So it feels pretty weak to call me and Frank like the primary threats to Nate right now. I'm sure Nate is just smiling over there with as the only competent team through 2 weeks. Next in the VTL list is Bo, Maffey, Casey, and JW. I have them ranked JW, Bo, Casey, Maffey. I think I ended up going with JW first of that group because I feel like I know who JW is. The offense is going to be very good. Likely we haven't seen that ceiling yet. We're only at 52% VTL, but the names, the pedigree on the guys on that team suggests that we're looking at an elite offense. And the pitching has been better than expected. 1 week was about 60, 1 week was about high 30s. So which one is real, right? That's the name of the tier that we're in. And I just think between Bo, Maffey, and Casey, I know, and JW, I know most who JW is. Bo and Maffey both, frankly, have had a really surprising peak week and a surprisingly bad week. And the highs and lows between those two guys has been so extreme that I don't really know where to take it. So you look at Bo, 37% VTL week one, 69% week two. That was the second worst and the best. Maffey, 69.6% VTL week one, the best. 34.66% week two, the second worst. I just don't know where to put these guys, so they're in the middle, lumped in with a couple others that are looking like middle teams so far. Casey, like I said, has had actually numbers that are kind of just even across the board. When you look at him and JW, they actually look quite similar, but they've done it in a little bit of different ways. Casey has stuck pretty close to the middle in all four instances. I say four because I almost always view this as what did your offense do? What did your pitching do? And we've had week one and now we've had week two. So I view that as like four different outcomes for VTL's purposes. And all four of those I think have been between like 42% to 52% or something like that. Maybe that can't quite be right. Anyway, I think it's between 40 and 60 with all four. And so he seems like he's off to a pretty solid start. You'd like to see the ceiling maybe flex higher and get above 60%, and there's plenty of time to do that. The offense looks plenty competent. And with JW, he has gone over 60% batting and he has gone over 60% pitching. It's just that the inverse of that happened on the opposite week. So we've yet to see him put it together. But if he does, certainly there's potential there to be very dangerous. The next tier down was Jeremiah, Brad, and Corey. I'm just realizing you can't really see that when it's over there. Whoops. Jeremiah, Brad, and Corey are all sharing in tier D. At least you're good on one side of the ball. Jeremiah has been the best offense in the league through 2 weeks, even better than Nate. VTL of 74.43% is insane, way beyond sustainable. Even for a super team, that would be probably beyond sustainable. That is domination. And 20% is a degree of futility that has rarely been seen in Funky Town history. So, where do you put this guy? I don't know. My mind was if you're going to guarantee that you lose pitching almost every week, you may run up against a really good offensive team that may scrap and take a few categories away from you, and then you're going to get shelled in pitching. You're probably not going to look very good at the end of the day. You need more balance than this to be sustainable and go into the playoffs and do damage. Hence why he lost this week. Um, Now he ran into a buzzsaw with Bo, who's the best team in the league this week. But yeah, it makes me nervous to see a number that low. But just like the offense is not sustainably good at that level, the pitching is not sustainably bad at that level. Everything will equalize soon enough, I think, to a degree. To some extent, things will normalize. Jeremiah probably rests at 60-40, but that will probably be what the end of the season number looks like. At least it will be a lot closer than 75-20. Brad and Corey are basically the same thing, but to lesser degrees. Brad is a good offensive team and a bad pitching team, but 15% better on pitching, 17% worse on batting. So almost equivalent there, but um, maybe that 57% just doesn't seem high enough to really seem dangerous yet. And the same thing for Corey, but his pitching has been 57%, his batting is 30. Um, doesn't seem dangerous enough with 57% pitching, although it's a good number for sure. When you have a hole like that on offense, doesn't feel likely that that team is going to go on a run and beat teams in the playoffs or perhaps even make the playoffs. A lot of talent still on all of these teams. I really love how the talent is distributed throughout the league. Feel like we're in a really competitive landscape right now, last year and this year. Last year before super teams really solidified anyways. And then the last tier, it's French and Alex. I think I have Alex, then French, technically. French, man, it's really more of it's more of a function of your injuries right now than anything else. I mean, your injuries are terrible, but you have a 34% pitching VTL, and your batting is also below 50%. So there's not much of a place to put you above anybody. Alex has technically worse VTLs, and so you could argue I'm just being a jerk to French, but I just think Alex came into the season with a keeper group that was really formidable. Feels like we're just below expectations in several players, and I just think that it's going to bounce back. Um, you could also argue that for French, the injuries are not going to last forever. I don't know. Both of y'all are better than your VTL suggests right now. 40 and 36% is really rough. Um, that is a level that can be sustained by the worst teams throughout the course of a season, but I don't think either of you are that bad right now. Frankly, I don't think any team in our league is that bad unless we make major selling decisions and give away all of your talent. So, anyways, there's a quick look at VTL. If you want to look through 2 weeks, who has been lucky or unlucky in terms of their opponent VTL, French has actually been the luckiest in the league, which is why you're seeing a bottom two VTL, but a seventh place in the standings guy. Jeremiah has been incredibly unlucky so far in his two matchups. Um, I forget who he even played week one. I think it was Maffey. Wow, is that right? I think Jeremiah played Maffey week one, best VTL in the league, and then Bo week two, best VTL in the league. That's astoundingly bad luck, if so. I mean, the opponent total VTL is 69%. That has to be true, frankly, because there's only been two teams who have reached 69%. And it was Bo and Maffey. Wow. Jeremiah, hang in there, man. It's not going to be this bad for too long, I don't think. Corey also had some bad luck drawing me week one when I had a pretty big week. And then this week, I forget who it was he played, but they did reasonably well. So, yeah, Corey, Jeremiah, you guys have been really unlucky so far in your matchups. Hang in there. And Casey, Bo, French, maybe don't get used to having opponents put up those kinds of numbers against you. You've had it pretty easy so far. Don't really think there's a whole lot else to go over other than maybe like throwing some superlatives out. I was a 93% pitching outcome this week, which is exceptional. Bo was a 93% batting outcome this week, which is exceptional. No, total VTL. Wow, that's really high. That's a top 100 number all time for Bo in terms of his VTL as a total. We had several people in the 80th percentile or better. Brad with his batting, Corey with his pitching, Nate with batting and total. Very impressive. Jeremiah literally had the 10th worst pitching week of our entire league's history by VTL this week. Uh, don't see numbers like that very often. That's pretty crazy. Um, yeah, that's pretty wild. So hang in there, Jeremiah. The offense at least is elite. It won't be this bad forever. Maffey had a really bad week 1 week after having a really good week. Anyway, I think that'll about do it. Excited for week three. We have our matchups posted in the doc as well if you want to look. Um, don't know if anyone has like a particularly brutal next three games or anything, but here it is. Take a look, and best of luck here in week three.